Welcome to Cambridge Health Alliance Health is Wealth. My name is Roberta Robinson. I'm Director of Marketing and Outreach for the Geriatric Division of the Cambridge Health Alliance. Today I'm excited to have Scherrie Keating, who is a nurse and also a certified, Scherrie,
Diabetes Care and Education Specialist.
that's a mouthful, but she does
It,
great work and she has a lot of information to share with us. So, Scherrie, out here, diabetes is so prevalent. It is so prevalent. And I found, because my mother was diabetic, there's so much education. It's all about education. People, even things like what you eat and how it converts, people don't understand that. And I mean, I had the learning curve myself. So tell us what information you have to share with us today.
oh my goodness, that is opening Pandora's box because there is so much information. I mean, first of all, it depends on how you want to approach it because there's three main types of diabetes. There's type 1, which used to be called juvenile diabetes, but now actually older adults can develop type 1 diabetes. It's just that your pancreas, which is the organ that makes insulin, stops producing insulin and you need to have insulin replacement. So that's type 1. That's the least common of the main type, which is type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes, 90 to 95% of the people have type 2 diabetes. It's really an epidemic. And type 2 diabetes means the organ, the pancreas that makes insulin, is still making insulin, but your body cells are not responding to it properly. And because of that, think of insulin, it's a hormone. Think of insulin as a key that unlocks our cell doors to allow the sugar that we've created from the food that we eat to enter and to be used for fuel for the cell. So when we have type 2 diabetes, it's a disease of insulin resistance, meaning that you're still producing insulin from the pancreas, but when it's time for the key to unlock the door for the sugar to go in, there's a problem. The cells aren't responding to insulin, and insulin is that key that opens the cell door. So the sugar doesn't go into the cell and isn't utilized properly for fuel. Your blood sugars start to elevate, and that chronic condition of having elevated blood sugar leads to multiple complications. So that's type 2 diabetes. A third type of diabetes is gestational diabetes or diabetes in pregnancy. And so that occurs about 24 to 28 weeks during pregnancy. And the hormones of pregnancy actually tax the pancreas and cause insulin resistance. And so a lot of women will develop, women with gestational diabetes will develop insulin resistance. They will either need to change their diet, they may need to go on insulin. But when they deliver and the hormones go back to normal, then they don't have diabetes. Only a small percentage of those mothers will continue to have diabetes and their children will be at risk. Then there's pre-diabetes. So pre-diabetes is like a precursor to type 2 diabetes. So we actually have a pandemic, not only of COVID, but of pre-diabetes. We have 88 million people, Roberta, and more than 8 out of 10 don't even know they have pre-diabetes because you don't develop symptoms for years into the process. So it's insulin resistance. So the key, which is insulin, isn't unlocking the cell door. Sugar is not being used in the cell, and we are developing complications of diabetes. So this process takes 10 to 20 years. So what's happening is your blood sugars are going up. You go for a blood test, you feel fine, but your blood levels show elevated, but not high enough to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That's pre-diabetes. And that is the time to make lifestyle changes to reduce your risk significantly of developing type 2 diabetes. So
having things like, exercise and healthy diet and drinking plenty of water.
well, you know what? We can't have a conversation about diabetes without talking about lifestyle changes. And yes, there is actual research behind prediabetes. It really is a thing. There was a diabetes prevention program, and it was a study that was done. And what they did was they had over 3,000 people participate, and they all had prediabetes. They had elevated blood sugars. There were different ethnicities. There were men, women. And so what they did was they put them into different groups. And one of them was uh, lifestyle changes. They had to lose 7% of their body weight by healthy eating and exercise. They met with the social worker every week. They were taught behavioral, changes, modification. And then there was another group that was put on metformin, which is like the number one drug for people that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes that they go on with lifestyle. And then the others were put into another arm with another diabetes medication. But that arm was actually of the study closed because some of the people developed liver disease. So that arm of the study was closed. And then there was the placebo group. So these three groups, what they found after studying this for 2.5 years, they actually stopped the study early because the results were so significant. People that lost 7% of their body weight through healthy eating and exercise lowered their risk of type 2 diabetes by up to 71%.
Wow.
71%, Roberta. That is
Wow.
unbelievable. So it's
Wow.
as simple as losing 7% of your current body weight through healthy eating and exercise. So, whether you're talking about preventing diabetes, whether you're talking about managing diabetes, we have to talk about lifestyle, because no matter what medications that you are on, the core treatment is changing your lifestyle. And I'm not talking about a quick fix. I'm talking about a lifestyle for life.
Right.
So I
Well,
think people don't understand that.
I think they don't. I don't think they like it either.
No,
But
it's hard. It's hard to do, to change. People are saying, I can't change. I've been doing this for the last 60, 70 years. But you know what? We can change.
we can.
Um, I always relate change to my story. I had terminal cancer and I went through a very difficult time. And um, that's a whole nother TV show. But what I can tell you is that I got to a place that was a very dark place. And my doctor said something to me that changed my life. And he said to me, your attitude will kill you before your cancer does. And for me, initially, it was a very difficult thing to hear. But when I had to think about it, I had to think about, okay, so why do I want to change my attitude to change my life? And I realized that I needed to find a purpose, and my purpose became my why. And my why was my 1-year-old granddaughter at the time. And she became the motivation and the drive to change my attitude, to change my life, to beat this cancer. And so I think diabetes and pre-diabetes is the same thing. You got to find your motivation. And once you find your motivation and you change your thinking, your mindset needs to be reset. Change your attitude to a positive attitude. Find your why and use it, and then put all that together. And once you change your thinking and your mindset, you can change your behavior. So it can be done, and it can be done successfully.
It can. You know what I always tell the people, when they say I've been doing this for 60 years, 70 years, and that's just the way I am, right? I tell them, a belief is only a thought that you keep thinking. If you want to
Mm,
change your belief, change your thought. It's and
yes.
and of course, 21 days it takes to make or break a habit. So if you want to let something go, try it for 21 consecutive days. If you want to incorporate something new, like a new thought, like instead of I can't do it, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, then say it for 21 consecutive days, and it integrates within our system, right?
Right. I
So
would say, instead of I think I can, I would say I can. I
I can,
can. I
yeah,
can. Because when you say I feel like it gives you a doubt that you can't
mm,
do it. So if you change your attitude and your mindset and your thinking to I can do this, I will do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be successful, that I think will help as well.
or I am doing this, right?
I am doing that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
So let's talk about type 2 diabetes because that is so prevalent.
it
And
is.
I call it the great remover because if people do not get a handle on their diabetes, it takes away eyesight, it takes away, um, wrecks your liver, it wrecks everything typically.
Yes. You know what? Type 2 diabetes is a leading cause of adult onset blindness, lower limb amputation, and kidney disease.
Kidney.
So you're right. It takes away from somebody's quality of life, and it can actually prematurely end your life. And so, by the time people are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, remember, they've had elevated chronic blood sugars for 10 to 20 years before their labs are high enough to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And a lot of times, one of these complications, eye disease, kidney disease, nerve disease, heart disease, a stroke, they may appear before someone gets diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So that's why prevention is the key. And as we talked about, diabetes is preventable with simple lifestyle changes. So I think that's so important.
It's a silent, it's like the silent killer. I mean, for those 10 or 20 years before you get to the point where you're diagnosed with diabetes, and now, the alarms go off, um, people don't recognize that. I know my own mother, all of a sudden, she was 70 actually, and it was at my son's first communion, and she couldn't get enough to drink. She was thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. But who knows what was going on those 10 or 20 years prior? She was doing her doctor visits. But no one, I guess, was.
Well,
we know a lot more today than we did.
Right. And the thing is, yes, you can be attending your doctor visits and getting your blood work, but our body is an amazing machine. And what will happen is our body will compensate. So it will hyperproduce insulin to try to get that insulin to unlock the cell door. So what's happening is the body is saying, okay, I can't get the sugar to go in the cell, so I'm just going to keep producing more and more insulin, because remember, insulin is like the key that opens the door for the sugar to get in the cell. So the pancreas will just pump out all of this insulin. So now you have a problem with too much insulin in the body, which gets stored as fat. And then you have too much sugar that's actually raising havoc with your small and large blood vessels. But your blood sugars are normal for a long period of time until the pancreas just cannot keep up with the demand. And then what happens is you start to burn out the cells that make insulin, and then your blood sugars are high enough that when you go for a blood test, then you actually are diagnosed with diabetes. Wow.
So excess insulin is stored as fat?
Yes, you store excess insulin as fat, yes.
Wow, it seems that a lot of things are stored as fat.
Well, obesity really is the driver to insulin resistance. And so belly fat. So we, the old, let's compare an apple with a pear. So an apple is round in the middle, okay? And a pear is more round at the bottom. So if I were to pick the body type that I would want to live with, I would want to be a pear versus an apple, because an apple, if you're storing extra weight around the belly, which is, kind of padding those organs in the belly, what happens is that excess weight around the belly, which we call visceral fat, it actually acts like an endocrine organ, and it causes inflammation throughout the body, and it also causes a fatty liver. And so we need to get that belly fat down. So if only we could turn a switch and say, let's push that weight down to the hips, because it's better to have the weight around the hips than it is around the belly. So, we have to think about what we're eating on the long term. We need to think about, are we getting the exercise that we need? Because the more we exercise, the more the insulin is going to be able to open that door for the sugar to go in. You become more insulin sensitive when you exercise versus insulin resistant when you don't. So we have to exercise. And the research from that diabetes prevention program shows 5 days a week, 30 minutes is what you need to do for exercise. So it not only helps diabetes, but it lowers your cholesterol. It lowers your blood pressure. It makes you emotional. Everyone knows the benefits of exercise, but in terms of diabetes, it actually helps you use the insulin your body produces more effectively. And when it does that, then the sugar will go in the cell and be used appropriately. So, the thing about exercise is, what they found out about exercise is that you don't have to do 30 minutes all at once to get the benefit. You can do a 10-minute period 3 times a day at a moderate pace and get the same benefit as doing 30 minutes. So a lot of people say, I don't have time to do 30 minutes of exercise, but everybody has time to do 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and 10 minutes. Do you know what
right.
I'm saying? So it's
I do.
achievable for everybody.
Right.
And so, there's so many other benefits to exercise, but for diabetes prevention, that is key. And if you have diabetes, it helps you lower your blood sugar. And diabetes is associated with heart disease. Okay. Because remember, when you carry excess weight around your middle, it causes inflammation in your body. Inflammation leads to heart disease, strokes, and everything else. So by exercising, you're lowering your cholesterol and your blood pressure. And those are two things that can also contribute to heart disease and strokes.
Right.
So, exercise is going to
It's
do a lot of
amazing
things.
how everything just dovetails in, right? And one thing
Totally
leads to the other.
dovetails. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have diabetes, you're going to want to exercise. If you're trying to prevent diabetes, you're going to want to exercise. Eating. Eating is huge. The diabetes prevention program study showed saturated fat, which is the fat I tell people that comes from four-legged animals, like whole milk, any whole dairy products, any, beef, butter, anything that can come from a four-legged animal is higher saturated fat content.
Okay.
So people are saying, well,
Yeah,
what's the difference?
I think that's an easy way to remember it.
Yeah, so
Because it's
four-legged animals, yes.
yeah.
I always tell people eat two-legged animals and those that swim more than four-legged animals. Am I saying that you cannot have beef? No, I'm not. I'm just saying you want to have more of the two-legged without the skin. Because think about on Thanksgiving when you're taking that turkey out of the oven and as a kid, we used to fight over the skin because it was nicely brown. But when you lift up the skin, what's dripping off of the skin? Right? The fat. So you want to have two-legged animals without the skin, and then you want to have those that swim. So eating can be really challenging for so many people because, if you ask anyone with diabetes or anyone trying to lose weight, they're going to tell you one of their biggest challenges is what to eat, how much to eat, and changing their habits. So a couple of thoughts on that. I use My Plate. And you know what? I actually have a My Plate, um, but it's a 9-inch plate. I was going to grab my plate to show people. Can I do that? Would you mind if
Sure.
I? Okay,
Yeah,
let me
go
show you.
ahead.
So this is my plate. Can everybody see? It is a 9-inch plate, and you're dividing this 9-inch plate in half. And on this half, you're putting fruits and vegetables. This half, you're putting a lean protein. So remember, those two-legged animals without the skin and those that swim more than the red meat. And your
And that
lentils,
would be chicken or turkey.
chicken or turkey. Bison is very lean. Venison is lean. But, we can also include in the protein group, we can include nuts and seeds, and we can include beans and peas and lentils, those kind of things. And then whole grain, 100% whole grain. There's a difference between a whole grain and rich grain and a refined grain. You want all your labels to say 100% whole, the word whole. And then a low-fat dairy. And if you have a dairy allergy, then fortified soy is a better alternative. So
Now,
if we
excuse me, where do oats fit in there? Do they fit in as a
oats
whole
would
grain?
be in a grain. Oats would be in a grain. So if we just follow this and use this as a meal planning guide, we're going to eat healthier. Um, it's not as hard as people think. It's, remember, adjusting our mindset to
Right.
want to make some changes. And I always tell people, you didn't get to where you are in one day, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. We have to start with small changes. So making one substitution, even if you go with eating a couple more vegetables a day, or, making sure you're eating half of your grains and making sure that half of your grains are coming from whole grain. If you're eating red meat 5 days a week, go down to 4 days a week. If you're having white bread, maybe switch it up to a whole grain bread. So just a simple change like that can make all the difference in your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your weight, your diabetes, whether you have diabetes or your diabetes prevention, and so many other health issues. If we just learn to eat less saturated fat and more of the unsaturated fat, like The Mediterranean diet. That's such a great way to eat. It's got your healthy fats, which are your unsaturated. So people are always like, well, what is unsaturated versus trans
I
fats?
know it's confusing for people.
It is confusing. So if you think about saturated, think about like full of bad things. Unsaturated are not full of bad things. They're healthy for you. And trans fats are the worst fats. So you never want to eat anything with trans fats. And those are healthy fats that they add hydrogen to, and they make it so that they preserve it for years to come. So I'll give you an example. Dairy creamers. Okay, think about this. Where does dairy normally get stored? In the refrigerator, right? But if we want dairy to last forever in a warehouse, in a box, on the counter at work, we hydrogenate them so that we make them last, the shelf life lasts forever. And it's just chemicals, because dairy should go in the refrigerator. So if you switch from using non-dairy creamers to using even, you know, whole milk is even better than non-dairy creamers, but if you want to even be healthier, if you're drinking whole milk, go down to 2% milk. If you're drinking 2%, go down to 1%. If you're drinking 1%, go down to skim. All of that is going to make a difference in how much fat you're getting, how many calories you're getting, and how healthy you're going to be in the long run.
So the non-dairy cream is they're usually lower in calories, which I think is appealing to people. They think they're saving, right?
Yeah.
What about like the almond milks or the rice milks or soy milk? Any of that? Are they? They're half the calories even of skim milk, but are they good for us?
Well, they don't provide the same vitamin D and vitamin A that dairy milk provides. So the recommendation is they're actually not included in the milk group because of the fact that they're not nutritionally the same as dairy milk. So you would want to have either, if you couldn't drink low-fat dairy or skim, then you would want to go more with a fortified soy versus a plant-based milk. Am I saying you can never have plant-based milk? No, but and that's the people's thinking. Oh my God, I can't eat what I love to eat all the time. You know, I have to have this. No, I'm never going to say cut out a food group. And I think that's where people fall short, is that they cut out a food group. Like, let's take the keto diet. So what will happen is people will cut their carbs significantly lower, but it's really not, it's not, your body requires carbohydrates for energy. It's the choice of the carbohydrates that you're making that makes something healthy or not healthy. So really the dietary guidelines that just came out in January, the new 2020-2025, says that we shouldn't cut out a food group because all of them are giving our body the essential nutrients and fiber and vitamins and minerals our body needs. It's the choices in each category that can make or break your health. So if you eat healthy 85% of the time, then 15% of the time you can have the added sugar, the sodium, the saturated fat. But you have to do 85% of the time eating healthy, and My Plate is a good option.
So I noticed that desserts aren't on that plate anywhere.
Well, you know what? You can make dessert. So that would be your 15%. So if you look at your day, 85% of your day you're going to eat healthy, 15% you're going to, maybe have that dessert that you want that may be higher in fat or higher in salt, whatever it may be. But you can always recipe substitute and make something that would be a high fat dessert, a lower fat dessert. And that way it would be healthier for you. So did you see I didn't cut out dessert? I changed it, and I want your viewers to hear what I'm saying. I'm not cutting out anything. If I want to have something, I can indulge every now and then, but if I want to have it more regularly, I need to think about what ingredients that I'm putting in that to lower the unhealthy ingredients to more of the healthy ingredients so that I can have what I like. It's all about choices, Roberta. We have an opportunity.
I think, right?
Education and choices. Yes, education. I can't stress enough. I tell people this in my classes. My kind of company motto, I own Diabetes Care with a K Consulting, and my company motto is turn education into action. So what that means is that we can be educated. Have you ever gone to a conference, Roberta, and you get so much information and you have your folder and you've got them all in there, and then you go home and you close your folder and you put it on the shelf and you say, I'm going to go back and look at that, and then it never happens?
Right.
I want people to take the education, even just the small amount of time that we're talking, and do something with it. Turn education into action, because then it becomes not just education, but it becomes life changing and life saving. And that's what I really believe, is that we need to become educated. But if you're not doing anything with that education, then you're really just getting education. We got to turn it into action.
I think that's a great point. Well, here we are, and we've done a whole show, and I think I've learned a lot. I hope the viewers have learned a lot, and I think that I can't stress enough. It's making the choices, but it's also learning about the ingredients and how one thing affects another thing, and what those choices are, our options. So Scherrie, thank you so much. I We'll have to have you back again sometime. I'm sure there's more to talk about.
I would say there was a little bit more to talk about. Thank you so much for having me. It's always so nice to see you, Roberta.
My pleasure, and thank you again for coming on board.
You're very welcome.